Okay, so our speaker tonight is Rolf Dane, and I believe that majority of you know him very well. Rolf is an accomplished clearer and auditor with a long and active history in what we call free zone. Originally, he did his training up to class 8 in what we know as the Church of Scientology organization. Later on, he did training in applied metapsychology and is certified and licensed in traumatic incident reduction, life stress reduction, and, and the ability levels, which we also know as grades. So prior to studying clearing tech, he also earned a degree in philosophy from Copenhagen University, and he has written several books and ebooks. It's the same, really, including Deep Clearing, Releasing the Power of Your Mind, more techniques of deep clearing, Clearbird materials online, Prometheus reports, and a long series of articles on clearing tech topics, as well as a series of articles which were critical of the official Church of Scientology. Rolf insists that we don't throw out the baby with the bathwater, okay, but rather preserve and develop the clearing tech and don't settle for the second best. Okay, so let's give the word to Rolf and let him actually talk to us. So, welcome, Rolf. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Emir. And hi, everybody. I see a lot of familiar faces, and welcome to you all. I'm Rolf Dane, and I run what is called an ability coaching practice in Copenhagen, Denmark. We're here today to get some basic information about deep clearing. I will talk for about an hour, then there is a break, and part two contains group processing session similar to guided meditation, and there is a question and answer period. In this group clearing, you get instructions from the clearer that you carry out in silence. Sometimes you write down the answer to a question or the prompt, so you will need pen and paper for that particular part. The main presentation today is supported by video and slides, so I will just have to arrange that from time to time on my computer, so bear with me if it slows down things. In putting together this workshop, I have assumed that the participants have a basic knowledge of clearing tech in general, either as clients or practitioners or from some other source. First, I'll play a 3 minute video that defines deep clearing and outlines its use.
Deep clearing is a life coaching method and technique that goes deeper than ordinary types of clearing, therapy, or life coaching. The secret is that we use existing proven techniques as far as they go. Then we shift gear and find the underlying layers of reactive charge and subtle vital energies. By mastering and eliminating these hidden energies, Deep works as a booster. It makes stable gains possible. In Deep, we take care of traditional issues of coaching and therapy, like stressful situations, traumas, troubled relationships, personal problems, low moods, and depression. Our specialty is, however, development of awareness and abilities. The expected end result is a greater appreciation and happiness in life, more energy, as well as increased social skills, etc. This may sound familiar to you from other methods of life coaching and therapy. This is no surprise, because we use such other methods as far as they go. But then we shift gear and find the underlying hidden charge and subtle energies. You could say, we don't do anything new. We just do it better.
The name DEEP is an acronym and it stands for Decisions, Emotions, Energies, Efforts, Personalities, Polarities. The deep elements are the ever-shifting life energies that play out in our spirit, mind, heart, and body, as well as in our actions, behavior, and relationships. What is wrong in our lives is not always what happened to us. A better statement would be, how did you react to what happened? And this is where the life energies we call deep elements are in play. When these energies get frozen or stuck, we are in trouble. We need to do something. Good therapy in general is about overcoming irrational behaviors and overreactions, negative moods, and thoughts. The therapist starts with finding those, and then works with the client to lighten that burden. In deep, we take it one step further and find the exact feelings and life energies that were stuck and yet got triggered. We can discharge these energies. Then we find the hidden and unsuspected mental vibrational energies that lie under it all. By using simple techniques, we get the life energies to flow freely again. We have not invented a new therapy. Our ambition is only to make existing methods better.
Okay, that's a quick explanation of what's new in deep. When we start with a new client, we start, however, with processes and techniques that are well known to most of you. We bring an overview here to refresh your memories and inform newcomers. They certainly are necessary as a foundation to understand what we do in deep clearing. All right, so here's an overview of basic clearing tech services. They are based on applied metapsychology and traumatic incident reduction. We have current life review. We start with an interview, and from there we tailor-make a clearing program that handles and releases charge from the person's current life. It can be upsets, difficulties, relationships gone bad, charge and financial problems, etc. It can all be cleaned up and anything else from the interview. And here you see the person has obtained a new outlook on life because all these burdens are cleared up. The next level here is recall level. We work with improving memory and the recall faculties. Ideally, the person regains the ability to see past events in color and 3D, including emotional state, body sensations, and many other details. This is quite possible, but it doesn't happen all the time. But improved memory is certainly the result. Then we have traumatic incidents. Here we address this lifetime, accidents, injuries, operations, major losses. It can be breakups, it can be death in the family, or financial losses. They are all contacted and released. The result can be magical in terms of relief. And we illustrate it by a car accident, an all too common trauma in modern life. Helper control here is a person willing to give and receive help? Is he willing to accept and exert control? This is reviewed and taken up on this level. Good control helps in the job and maintaining good relationships. And we see a teacher with a group of students here, and he certainly has to be willing to help, and he certainly looks the part, but he also has to have good control in order to get the children to behave properly. So here we go, communication level. This ability to communicate openly and freely is a cornerstone in ability programs. This is taken up in many ways and fully handled. The problems level. The problems program takes care of your problems. You are simply allowed to work out how to solve these problems and find underlying causes. Whatever may be left becomes interesting challenges in the game of life. So we help the person, handle his problems, and what we are interested in are these problems that are overwhelming and kind of not moving, because we have no ambition of solving all the problems, because the only person that doesn't have any problems anymore is a dead person. As long as you have goals and purposes and things to do, you'll get problems. But you can see them as challenges rather than burdens. So here are some more services. Reconciliation program. All too often, relationships get tarnished or lost due to all the small and big sins and misdeeds we commit against each other. This level clears all that up. And you can see here is a reconciliation. Can we be friends? Oh, yes, once more. Past upsets. Major upsets can alter the course of one's life or our lives to the worst or even to disaster. We dig up these past upsets, review them, and clear them up on this level. Then we have new ideas, or getting rid of fixed ideas, you could say. In deep, we address fixed ideas when they turn up. On this level, however, we have tools and techniques to dig them up for real, these life-changing negative ideas, and neutralize them. So all along, we keep an eye out for negative and limiting ideas and take care of them as we go along. But there can still be some that we need to dig to find. And you can see the cage has all these negative ideas, and this is an image of the result. Right, so then we have past lives and timeline adventures. Using traumatic incident reduction and other techniques, we can, with most clients, contact their past lives. This is an odyssey that may end up in ancient cultures, space travel, and other planets. Fasten your seat belts, you'll never be the same. We illustrated with H.G. Wells' Time Machine. There were movies made about it. And here we see an operator of a time machine getting away from some weird monsters he kind of ran into in the distant past. All right, so the next here is a deep only program. We find and clear up your major goals in life. We also address conflicting goals and purposes and the archetypical patterns they form. Life is a game. Let's go ahead and play it for real. So we have major goals and we have some conflicting goals shown in this illustration. Here's another deep only program called Deep Relationship Clearing. In this program, we clean up important relationships. We look at the world and the relationship through own eyes and then the other person's eyes by amazing introspections. In other words, we see, a relationship from two sides, and it's quite magical that you can pick up thoughts and ideas and feelings and what have you in the other person that you have had close contact with. So this is a good idea for couples that has kind of gotten into a dead routine and life is kind of boring. They can liven up their relationship by something like that. And these are the main services that we present here. So what are the deep elements? The short video gave you an overview of the deep elements. The elements are all kinds of subjective manifestations and energies in consciousness and body. It is personal stuff having to do with our inner world and experience and our dealings with the body. You see the long list under head, heart, and hand down here. These are all the personal and subjective experiences. I'm a graduate from applied metapsychology developed of Dr. Frank A. Gabody. That method emphasizes the person-centered aspects of a client's case and the importance of dealing with that in an organized manner. Our focus in Deep is to make sure these energies on the list haven't been repressed or gone stuck. Charge, as a concept, is comparable to static electricity. It can just be sitting there and be bugging us. When we connect well to it, the charged area, however, the deep elements discharge very quickly. When we in life ignore or push away and any subjective content, push it aside, it simply tends to build up as stress, distress, and reactive charge. When we just repress and try to forget about the person-centered side, it keeps staying out of control and bugging us. In Deep, we can contact and loosen up the elements by simple techniques, and this allows them to flow and the area will relax and go flat. The deep elements will be discharged and lose their energy and power altogether. So you see here different models we compare it to. We have George Gurdjieff's four aces, where he shows thought, emotion, action, and instincts, and the spirit that kind of keeps the balance. We have the classical head, heart, and hand. It's also very comparable to the techniques we use or the concepts we use. And besides all these things, we can even find incidents where smell and taste play a big role, and we can get the bad smell out of an incident quite amazing. So let us just underscore. Broadly speaking, most clearing techniques deal with charge, but the concept is not very well understood. It is what is known as charged, emotional charge, or reactive charge are one or more of these energies and elements out of control. When we connect up to them and clearly identify them, it is actually a straightforward job to release them as well. We have a motto in Deep. Deep is not rocket science, just old-fashioned dynamite. You can see at the bottom of this slide. What is behind this motto is that we have not given up on traditional clearing technology. We are not trying to reinvent the wheel or anything like that, but we have insisted upon simply doing traditional research and development, as they do in all production companies and activities, from farms, school systems, mail order companies, supermarkets, and not the least to high-tech companies such as software and hardware developers. Even though research and development has a bad name in the ears of some clearing technique practitioners, our standpoint is that any technique that isn't subject to a constant adjustment, scrutiny, and improvement will sooner or later become outdated and unworkable. The competition will eat it up, or the consumers will simply go elsewhere, and that for obvious reasons. Would you buy a computer anno 1984 today? That was my first computer, a modern miracle back in that year, but today it would be a hopeless bottleneck with a cork in if I were to use it for office work. And you see the other types of equipment. We have the telex machine, 1965. That was the email of the day back then. And the calculator here, it has a handle. When you get a calculation, you have to write it out on paper, and there's no memory whatsoever. Every little single calculation has to be written out. And if you had to add a long column of figures, you cannot check it afterwards. You have to do it twice or three times or whatever. And compare that to a smartphone of today. It has 16 gigabytes as memory, and it has all kinds of functions, including email, calculation, typewriting, and much more for that matter. So when we say deep is not rocket science, just old-fashioned dynamite, it means that we have updated the clearing technologies so it will still serves consumers and clients of today, and not just some imagined client from way back then. The new in deep clearing is the result of some new insights about the nature and behavior of reactive charge. And applying that to clients made all the difference. So in this presentation, you will hear me talk a lot about charge and not so much about techniques in general. Deep can simply be seen as a basic style of clearing, a method designed to be added to existing processes and techniques used in clearing, and indeed to any form of life coaching and therapy. We use processes and techniques that have a proven record of producing results. When we add the deep step to the end, we get stable and lasting results. So we illustrate that on the slide here. We see deep as a power tool, as a motor simply. And here we have all these attachments developed by other smart developers, and they can do all kinds of things, and they have done so for years. So we combine these well-known tools with a little extra power. All of life and reality can be understood as waves and frequencies. Anything solid can be transformed into waves and flows. When it comes to cases and the reactive and emotional charge that weighs down a person, we deal with waves gone solid. If a person is deeply depressed or mentally burdened about something, it is due to his negative thoughts, feelings, and emotions have become solid and stuck in that area of his life. Our job in clearing work is to unstick the ridges and restore the person's natural mastery and control over these phenomena. We help the client to release the collapsed waves and restore a proper free-flowing balance of the life energies expressed as deep elements. We've been practicing various forms of clearing technology with good success and for many years. Yet we also saw some shortcomings over time. This is how we got started on our research. We found that clearing tech in general was mainly aimed at clearing the person's head and mind. New techniques consisted of working out even smarter questions and prompts. The end result of a technique would be some insight, which is great. But we found what was often missed was that the burden was not only negative thoughts and ideas, not only the upsetting story in traumatic incidents. What was missed in many cases was the emotional and reactive charge the person has accumulated in heart and body. This charge had briefly cleared up, and the sun had broken through the clouds. But alas, once the person had enjoyed the new insight for a while, the clouds would come back again and cover the sky. We have been dealing with many high-level cases that had completed advanced levels. These persons told us that the same difficulties and complaints more or less had come back after the clearing work. The fears of low emotions, the same issues they had battled years ago. In other words, the complaint had only been temporarily handled. This was, of course, a number of cases and not all cases. We met this fixed teaching. It seemed to us that if you reach the state of high release, enlightenment or clear, by whatever means, all your case troubles would be over. You would just have to experience the cosmic release moment, the moment of enlightenment, and all reactive charge would be forever gone. I was skeptical of that, as I had seen so many and talked to so many high-level clients and cases who still were bothered by old complaints and case conditions. These areas and issues were only partially handled. The slide illustrates two things that we found needed correction in clearing tech. To the left you see a man with body problems, and you see a large gallery of mental image pictures behind his head. He was told, you just have to run enough of these stories, this life and many earlier lifetimes, stories in the form of traumatic incidents and disasters. You just have to bring all these incidents into awareness, and all your woes and troubles will go away. Yet we often found the same fears and negative emotions were still unhandled down the list of deep elements. So we concluded that just running the story wasn't enough. You had to contact the actual mental and emotional energies that were causing the agony and the discomforts here and now. These energies, these charges, exist in present time, in the mind, in the heart and body, or they wouldn't be bugging the person. And here we use the long list of deep elements as a guideline for our questioning. For a major issue, we usually find several or many items that had to be taken up. Each item taken up can be discharged and run flat, just like a car battery. If left alone, they will charge up again. Yes, just like a car battery does once again. And it's actually the person, him or herself, that recharges the elements unknowingly. When we in session take care of all the deep elements present in the issue, the person can usually find rational and often obvious solutions to the problem or issue that he just couldn't handle before. The man to the right here on the slide is looking further and further back in time. He's convinced if he can just come back early enough, all will be well. He is convinced that the ultimate cause of his present condition and problems is always in the distant past. We found that we really needed to pay more attention to the deep items present here and now and discharge them, with simple techniques such as repeated mindful observation. We also came to the conclusion if you just pursue stories and adventures in past lives, you'll never get it all. Taking care of head, heart, and body as they exist now must always be our first priority. Okay, we humans and free spirits and thetans are fascinated by stories from before time and earlier universes. These were apparently times where we could create and destroy planets, had lives as kings and queens, were trapped in dungeons, or we did space travel but stranded on a remote Arctic planet and froze to ice. After all, time travel is possible in session. We realize that, and we realize by doing that that we are free spirits. I, as a client, was fascinated by the magical universe that preceded this one. It was that universe that inspired Tolkien to write The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings, and other fantasy writers were inspired to write other such stories. The stories seem so eerie real, so uncanny familiar, yet it's pure fantasy, but apparently the authors do refer to something they kind of recall in their minds. But going early enough is not going to fix your marriage, the loss of your job, and tons of other problems and discomforts. If you're sitting on a thumbstick, you need to get up and remove it. Talking about the distant past is not going to help here. We need to handle the charge of this head, heart, and body first. We see the charge as very real phenomena of mental matter, energy, space, and time. It is charge here and now that is crying out like a baby that cries out for attention and care. This charge impinges on the body and the mind systems. It can be contacted directly, sensed and connected up to, and discharged in a systemic fashion. I want to go further into the understanding of subtle energies in our body-mind systems and the connection to what we know as charge. All therapies, coaching practices, self-development practices, etc. are primarily occupied with eliminating charge and restore the healthy flow of the subtle energies, whether they use that terminology or not. Charge causes mental, behavioral, ethical, criminal, pedagogical problems. Yes, and it spills over into all parts of life, all professions, undertakings, educational systems, the crime world, the prison system, politics, art, literature, etc. It is such a major factor in all walks of life, and that is why we find it necessary and justified to spend so much time on it. I cannot say necessarily that we necessarily have found the ultimate solution in deep clearing, but I think we have developed new knowledge and some sound principles. The deep method is an effective way to reduce and eliminate charge and is thus closer to the truth. We see the way that charge on was built up in the first place was due to the person being subject to more randomness, more commotion and action than he or she was capable of handling. There were more and stronger pains, feelings, sensations, and thoughts being generated that the mind and the body could deal with. So the person resisted it. The person was incapable of processing the impact right there. Instead of allowing the energies, the deep elements, to simply flow through him or her, he got scared and blocked and repressed the energies, apparently to protect himself. We find that reactive charge is electrical in nature. More precisely, it behaves like static electricity. It can build up and just sit there. It is experienced as emotional and mental energies as well as body sensations. It was generated and built up, but was resisted and stopped in its tracks, and was never allowed to simply run its course or complete its action. When we find something that is charged up, we need to establish a good connection to it, establish a conductor the charge can travel along, and then we need simply to allow it to flow freely. In the group processing, in part 2 of this workshop, you have a chance to experience this firsthand and for yourself. So dealing with the deep elements directly is an important step. There is, however, a layer underneath that often has been observed but not included in clearing work. We're talking about the subtle energies that have forms and shapes, colors and substances, frequencies and vibrations. With a little bit of training, most, if not all people, can observe them directly in or around the body using their inner eye. I'm tempted. So here on the slide here, you see we illustrate these energies as this psychedelic looking uh, formation around the body here and here inside the body. It's mainly found around the head and in the torso, by the way. It's kind of magical in nature. It kind of appears and disappears depending on whether you put your attention on some incident or issue or not, but it sure can come and go. So I'm tempted to call this layer the quantum layer on the case. In another video, we compared it with machine code in computer programming. Apparently, this layer is very meaningful to the body-mind system, but on a rational level, it seems incomprehensible. Right, we could call it the layer of mental matter, energy, space, and time, or mental mist. Much of our efforts in life coaching are directed towards making the person course over these elements, this quantum layer of case, and thus become course over mental mist. We have established that charge is repressed or blocked life energies, but these vital energies also comprise a spectrum of frequencies and wavelengths. From the finest thought waves of aesthetic nature to the coarse waves of action or using tools like a hammer, a shovel, or lifting weight. These energies by themselves are not reactive charge. Vital energies do not become charge until they are disrupted or stopped. We first have reactive charge when the energies pile up and go solid. These piled up energies can now be triggered by events and people in the environment. So what has happened is we have ignored and denied them, and now the environment apparently can take control. It can use the energy against us, so to speak. Right. So in a healthy state, there are these layers, like we have the thought layer, a mental picture, it's more solid. Then we have the emotions, Action is the contact with the physical actions, effort, impulses, and finally the subtle energy layer. So if we have a certain incident, there can be a thought, I'm finished. There can be a picture of an accident. There can be some emotion, down emotion usually. There can be here on the effort level, there can be pain and there can be impact, being hit, the sensation of that. And finally, there are the subtle vital energies that are, it's hard to say, but they're taken up in some modalities like Reiki and healing. And they are well described also in Eastern practices where they talk about etheric bodies in the aura. Right. So let's go to an example here. So here we have a little girl that has a phobia for spiders. And in order to help her out of that, if it's serious, I mean, there are different ways to do it. But what we are showing here is to uh, get hold of the fixed ideas you may have about spiders. There might be mental image pictures, feelings and emotions like horror and fear, impulses and reactions. Maybe she wants to flee or scream. And below all that, there are these fine, subtle energies that we are working on to loosen up so they flow freely. This whole thing we call a deep package, and we deal with as much as we need to do. And when it's all cleared up, the issue is handled and the girl is happy with spiders. She may keep them as pets even. Up till now, we have been telling you about much of the theory behind deep. To many of you, there are probably several new and unfamiliar ideas. You may, of course, also be in disagreement with what we have been saying. At this point, I want to explain how the theory can be applied to a situation that is more familiar to you: the resolution or running of a charged incident, such as what is known as a trauma. A physical trauma can be an accident, a fight or operation. An emotional trauma can be a loss of a loved one or loss of personal property, losing one's job or status, etc. These situations are all instances of events that overwhelm the person in one way or the other. Could be physical overwhelm, emotionally or mentally overwhelm. We simply got confronted with more energy and force, more upsetting circumstances and story than we were geared to handle. As a result, our mind and body got overwhelmed. We put the brakes on this inflow and it became stopped and frozen waves. It got put into the not now, possibly much later pending basket and stored away in the subconscious. Uh, it was being repressed, denied, and forgotten. So the person turns up at the door of the clearing practitioner. The clearer takes the person in and gets him to relax. The person wants to get over this car accident. So the clearer sends him back to re-experience the story. They go through it a couple of times to get all the facts and details straight in the accident. This is dealing with the outside or physical realities of the accident. Then the clearer turns to the person-centered or subjective experience. She asks into the content of the deep elements, the feelings, the emotions, sensations, and impulses in the experience. Also, the physical movements during the accident are of interest. This is all dug up and processed rather smoothly. It can be done in one session usually. It may be, it may end there, or the clearer may look for an earlier similar experience. It is taken to full resolution, resulting in a happy and relieved client. In deep, we rarely need to go way back in time to explore the client's earlier lives, but doing so is still an option we don't rule out. From our own case experience, going into earlier lives certainly has a great value in its own right. We get oriented to a very personal and hands-on in a very personal and hands-on manner that we are spirits and time travelers on one tiny but blessed blue planet that is part of a vast universe. So we certainly recommend exploring the personal timeline for the reasons of getting insight in our history and spiritual nature. But when it comes to clearing up the deep items, it is usually not needed. The chart is present here and now, or it won't be bothering the person. This slide here, it shows in a different way how the process works. We have the reactive chart in the subconscious, called it clutter here, and it's unfinished business of one kind or the other, sitting in the pending baskets as we showed earlier. So we have all these stuck energies, feelings, emotions, and so on, and we take them up one by one. And you could say that's a trick when something is overwhelming. We simply have to take it a little piece at a time, and then it's quite possible to get over here in the clarity department, in the analytical or conscious mind. And here we have free-flowing feelings, emotions, sensations, thoughts, impulses, and actions. So the process discharges the reactive and stuck energies, so they are free-flowing again. And we call it from clutter to clarity. And we use this repeated mindful observation, one item at a time. All right. Here's another slide that shows how we can handle what is called disturbances or outrudiments. It consists of things that time may come in, problems and upsets and what have you, minor things that the client arrives with, but we need to take them up first of all so we can go into the major process without all these distractions. So we can ask, is there an upset recently? And yeah, I had an argument with my spouse. And okay, is there an earlier similar? Yeah, that was 2 years ago. Earlier than that, yeah, it was 6 years ago. Was there earlier than that? No, I don't remember. But if the client isn't happy at this point and still kind of distracted and so on, we simply take up the deep items remaining, and that goes pretty fast. And then we don't need to kind of go into Never Land where the client cannot remember anything. We can simply go as early as there's a road, and then we take the deep approach. And that's it. All right. Here, an interesting thing. Many of you may have known such a big chart here with different levels you can get through, and you can get more and more able and all that. And that's very good and fine. But sometimes when you come in with a major upset in life or disability, the The salesman, he will tell you, yeah, but you have to get up here to get it handled. And you are actually down here somewhere. And we don't think that's a good idea in deep. Instead, we take it up right away. Um, if you say a communication process, it can reveal upsets, it can reveal uh, other things that the person doesn't like, and so on. We can take it up as a sub element in that particular process. So we would run the main process to its normal end phenomenon, and then we would take up anything, any charge revealed during the session. And I'll show some examples in the cases later on, but this is it. So here's a text. Deep brings new life to the ability levels. We keep focus, for example, on communication skills, but we address in the same session any triggered conflicts, negative emotions, and other underlying charged issues. They directly influence the client's well-being, desire, and ability to communicate. Maybe the client doesn't need the highest levels to resolve such basic issues. Maybe he just needs his abilities deepened. So we don't do anything new really, we just do it better. In the next section, we'll go over some actual cases that we have dealt with in session. Here, we by accident we came into a past life trauma, and that cleared up nicely with deep. Negative feelings was simply run out as a feeling. Uh, Brain injury, the trauma was handled. It was more complex things, but it was mainly the negative side was the trauma. The positive side was to re-establish control of the body. Obsessive thoughts, we took up the thoughts and found the underlying subtle energies, and that was how it was run out. Burn out by stress, all too common situation, but that was handled by getting all the small elements. For loss of job, that's of course a loss basically. And we have two more slides that are not included here, but it's stress in general and depression. So let's get to it. Here's the first case story. We used a technique called unblocking or prep checking. So we ran unblocking on a woman. The theme was bosses. We are asking the question, on bosses, has anything been invalidated? An incident where she was severely and unjustly invalidated for doing a job well came up. You must have gone to bed with the journalist to get such good press, she was told. We ran the charts in this incident, which was like this lifetime incident, but the underlying charts came up with deep. It was apparently a past life hanging. We addressed emotions, sensations, actions, movements, and thoughts alone, and not uh, time and place. But the underlying trauma resolved. When and where never came up and wasn't asked for. Here's the next story on a communication technique. On an ability level, the prompt was, what are you willing to tell me about eating disgusting food? The idea is you train the client to just answer this question again and again, and finally he get the confidence to do it in life. We reached the end phenomenon that the client was willing to talk freely about it. But the disgust that had come up wasn't handled. It was handled with deep subsequently. We simply addressed the disgust as a feeling. This case was an interesting and more complex situation. The client was a middle-aged man. He had a 5-year-old brain damage. He could barely talk. He had to write messages to get understood. His right arm was lame. We ran recalls with deep recall a moment in the brain damage incident. And when he nodded, we would ask for emotion, and he would nod. We would ask for a feeling in the body, uh, an action or impulse, or any thought, and each time he would simply nod. Uh, so he didn't have to speak, just nod as a sign of compliance. We also ran past physical activities and sports the same way. This was so he could regain control over his motoric systems. We also used other techniques. He recovered the ability to speak and regained some of the use of his right arm. Next picture here. This client had complained about sexual fantasies. He was an older man plagued by this phenomenon. We addressed the feelings and phrases directly, and we soon came to the layer of subtle energies. The person is asked to describe where the energies are located and describe shapes, colors, and other physical characteristics. By continuous and repeated mindful observations, the energies dissolved and disappeared. The client felt a major state of release and relief. Case story 8, depressed woman. A depressed person usually needs both mental and practical help. Vitamins, sunlight, and exercise are needed. Exercise is a good idea because everything in the person is kind of come to a halt. And if you simply ask the person to move and exercise and so on, the body kind of gets the idea, and after a while it helps the mind as well. As far as deep is concerned, we will find many stuck deep elements on the case. We take one after the other and discharge them systematically. There may be old upsets and losses to deal with as well. It can all be dealt with deep style. Okay, so here's my special offer for this workshop. I offer a free interview and session online. I'm located in Copenhagen, Denmark, and I usually use Skype or Google Meet as a medium. We extend this offer to new people and deliver it in person or via Skype. My email is there, rolf-dane@yahoo.com. I have several websites, rolfdane.com and deepclearing.org. I also have 2 books out. This book, Deep Clearing, Releasing the Power of Your Mind, is the best one to start with, and it gives a full explanation of the principles of deep and even a lot of procedures if you are already a practitioner that you can put into action. The other one is more a technical book, and it is more aimed at the practitioners that's already running.